From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 3 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Welcome. Good to see you again. Our guest today is political and legal analyst Seth Berenswijk. And on that note, we shall get to our first issue. Issue 1, spies, Sessions, and a silent Mueller.
The Attorney General made a terrible mistake when he did this and when he recused himself.
President Trump doubled down on those comments this week when he tweeted his disdain for Attorney General Jeff Sessions, posing the question of whether he should have nominated someone else to lead the Justice Department. Trump answered, quote, "I wish I did," end quote. The tweet comes amid increasing administration tension with special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into possible Trump campaign collusion with Russia. President Trump is also furious over what he claims was an FBI spying effort targeting his campaign. Department of Justice officials, Democrats and some Republicans, however, say there is no evidence of such espionage. Still, while Trump's ire is the talk of Washington, Mr. Mueller's investigation quietly rumbles on.
Pat, is the president right to be angry, or is this pageantry on the president's part?
He's right in this sense. Sessions should have told him he's going to have to recuse himself if you name me Attorney General. But he should stop talking about this on Sessions. He should not fire Mueller. He should not interfere with the Mueller investigation. He should let it go on to its end, because this thing is turning Trump's way. Politically, you see the investigation into the origins of the Comey-McCabe investigation. You see its objectivity question, suggestions of spying in it. And also you see Democrats are now running away from the idea of impeachment. Look, this is moving into the political realm. It is moving Trump's way. Don't interfere with it. Let Mueller issue his report. Rosenstein send it to the Hill or not send it to the Hill. I think Trump, right now it looks like Trump's going to win this thing.
Can I introduce a couple of facts here? First of all, Sessions didn't know that he would have to recuse himself when he was named Attorney General. That only came after he testified before the Senate, so the timing doesn't work on that. And the president would love to fire Sessions, but every focus group that's done, every poll that's done, suggests that even the president's staunchest supporters would look at that as though he were guilty of something, as though it would look suspicious. So he's stopping there. He's trying to force Sessions out on his own, and Sessions has grown a tiny bit of a backbone, and so he's still there, and that's good. Giuliani is the face of the public defender for the president. He has said no Spygate. Trey Gowdy, House Chairman of the Oversight Committee, said no Spygate. The president goes ahead and continues to insist. Certain number of people are going to believe the president, and you're right, he's had some success in discrediting the government investigation, and his pardon this week of Dinesh D'Souza sends the signal that lying to the government, campaign violations, no big deal.
Seth, is Eleanor right about that? Is Dinesh D'Souza, how do you read the legal tea leaves of the pardon of Dinesh D'Souza?
Well, I think that the president should put down his pardon pen and take a deep breath. The optics on this are not only problematic for the president, but it's an unnecessary legal distraction, because it really raises the specter of a possible obstruction issue. If there's any activity taken in order to try to influence in a negative way impeding of the conducting of a federal investigation, then that could feed into the obstruction narrative. And that's a road that the president just does not need to go down. And I think that one person who's really largely responsible for this, and we've already mentioned his name today, is Rudy Giuliani. I know that the president was not happy with Ty Cobb, and he was not a very flashy guy. But when you trade in Ty Cobb for Rudy Giuliani, it's kind of the equivalent of driving a Maserati into the dealership and puttering away in a Yugo. That was not a very good trade, and now we're seeing really
So you're a Giuliani fan, you're saying?
Well, I find him interesting, but not a terrific lawyer.
Okay, Clarence.
Yeah, this is the thing. You're referring, of course, to the president's proclivity for doing his own thing, even with all the wonderful sage advice that we may give him here in regard to how to handle the legalities of this situation. He's having a terrible time trying to restrain himself, because he really wants to answer that pushback reflex of his, and that is what could get him in trouble. The problem is, from the very beginning, he's been acting like a guilty man. This is what's difficult. When he keeps pushing back the way he does, if he really hasn't done anything wrong,
you're talking about the legal realm.
Yeah.
And Rudy Giuliani is out there in the public and political realm.
Right.
And when Trump is going with these pardons, what are they? He says, I've got the power. It's going to tick off my enemies enormously. It's going to invigorate and get my friends enthusiastic. I'm going to use it. And he sends a signal thereby, an indirect signal to the persecuted and those, those who are waiting for salvation, like maybe Paul Manafort and General. I mean, look, but this is political. You can't. You guys are all talking about, well, this Mueller says this, all this little stuff. This is going into the
I
political
agree
realm.
with you. It's political war, and they're going to resort to whatever tactic they have to resort to. And the president wants everyone to know he has unfettered power to pardon, and he's going to use it even on himself. I mean, I think the notion of the president pardoning himself is totally within the realm of possibility.
Seth,
But in the political realm, though, he should remember what happened with Gerald Ford. No, pardoning Nixon obviously did not help Ford's approvals at all. Quite the opposite. People were really angry because most Americans, I remember well, weren't paying that close attention to Watergate for that year and a half up to that point until Nixon resigned. I think the same thing. I see the same thing happening now. Most Americans outside the Beltway aren't that engaged with the intricacies of Russia.
It has become an us versus them thing.
All right, let me ask Seth.
It has been from the beginning.
Seth, do you think there's going to be a constitutional crisis because of the president's pardoning?
Well, I think that we're pretty much there already. The president, I have a lot of respect for him, and I agree with Pat that there's still a lot of holes in this investigation, and he has some arguments. But when you're talking about pardoning your kids, when you talk about pardoning yourself, the Constitution and the history of it has a degree of flexibility and discretion to it, but you can't stretch it out like a piece of bubble gum. At some point it breaks.
You know, when you say constitutional crisis, they all use that term. What are you talking about? You're talking about impeaching the President of the United States, convicting him.
No, we're not.
Well, what else is a constitutional crisis? Just people going to get on talk shows and yell about Trump?
A constitutional crisis is when one branch of government is trying to deliberately undermine another branch of government. And the contrast of the president arguing excessive government power in the likes of Martha
it's
Stewart,
just talk,
maybe.
Eleanor.
Just talk.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
it's
are they going to
all trials
impeach him or not?
That's all trial is just talk.
And he doesn't have any problems with excessive government power
All right.
pulling children away
Eleanor,
from
wouldn't
their parents.
but the president would say Congress and the judiciary are undermining him, those branches, wouldn't he? His supporters.
He already says that.
They're separate branches. It seems to me the Congress
right.
is supine.
Let's go. All right, we're going on to another issue.
Fine.
Okay. Issue 2, deregulating against death.
We're going to help a lot of people. We're going to help a lot of people.
President Trump this week signed into law the Right to Try Act. The legislation authorizes terminally ill Americans to access experimental drugs that have passed the first stage of Food and Drug Administration approval but are not yet fully approved for sale. Trump and Republicans in Congress believe the act will offer much-needed hope for those without other options for medical remedy. But many Democrats say the act undercuts patient safety.
Eleanor, is this act good news for the American people?
I wrote about this several years ago. It emanated from the Goldwater Institute, Barry Goldwater's son. It's a libertarian idea, and I think it crosses party lines. I think the people who are against it worry that it's sort of dangling out hope and futile care and who's going to actually pay for it and who's going to get screened in. But I think overall it's a good idea. I mean, it takes years and years for these drugs to get to the market, and a lot of people don't have years and years.
Clarence, why did Democrats oppose it?
Well, there is concern about where you draw the line, and a lot of people would gladly try a dangerous drug if they already know they're terminally ill, and if this is your last hope. And the question is, how do you define last hope? And those sort of interesting people are worried. Right, right.
But I was sort of been known of people involved and had these problems, and I tend to agree with you. Look, they ought to have all kinds of protections around it, but in the last analysis, you got to give the individual a right to give it a shot. It's his life, as long as he's got the intelligence and ability to make the decision.
think the president did the right thing, and this certainly is a very feel-good move. But as they say, the devil's in the details, and we're talking about a very central issue here that has to do with the last mile of delivery to the patient, and that's payment. What the law doesn't do is it doesn't address the issue of insurance coverage. And unfortunately, when you deal with these kinds of issues and regulations, the insurance carriers have profound power over something like this. So yes, this is a great move, and all but 12 states currently do it at the state law level, but it doesn't address the insurance payment issue, and insurance companies don't have any kind of guidance or direction here. So the plumbing still might get stuck, but I think it's a great idea.
With your legal knowledge and the forensic ability to deliver facts there, maybe the president should hire you.
Oh boy, getting hired by the president, that's interesting.
You just said you had a great deal of respect for the president. I was going to ask you on what you base that respect on. Respectfully.
Well, I think that...
And you're under oath.
Well, what I tend to do with the president is to really look more at the actions and listen less to the noise. There are a lot of things that are happening right now that are quite positive, and I thought that in many respects he had a good week. How he handled, and I don't want to go off into the weeds, but the letter that he sent to the North Korean leader that suddenly brought things back on track, signing legislation like this that can really improve lives. I think that he is making a difference in a very measurable way.
The economy is very strong.
The job numbers were very strong as well. So there's a lot of noise in the background, but I think there's also been progress.
Too bad the wage numbers weren't as strong. We're still waiting for these benefits to trickle down, but there are benefits.
African American unemployment has been the lowest in history.
Right. But
Can the guy be given credit for something, you know?
Wages are still down. That means that income gap is still there and getting wider.
Yeah, the economy is going gangbusters, but it's still a good issue for Democrats this fall because a lot of people are not feeling it. I mean, that gap is still there, and people having real struggles with rising health care premiums, with how to pay for college, and they feel like nobody's hearing them in Washington.
These are the talking points that they're coming off the hill for you, Alan?
No, I made them up myself.
But Eleanor, do you think, though, the Democrats have a challenge in the sense that their narrative has the less punchy weight that Trump's seems to have?
They're not as good as sloganeering. A better deal doesn't exactly rock everybody's boat.
The basic reality is
Stanley Greenberg, who has polled in Macomb County since the late 80s, Macomb County, Michigan, and the Macomb County roadmap brought Bill Clinton back to the White House, or to the White House, reorienting the Democratic Party more to the center. Macomb County went for Barack Obama twice, and then they went for Trump. So finding that link, and the link there is it's jobs. They voted for Obama on the economy, and they voted for Trump on the economy. If he can deliver, that's one thing, but with the tariffs and all of the unsettled policies that we're having, I mean, he could very well undermine the recovery.
Steel tariffs may hurt Macomb County because they're going to hurt the auto industry. So he could be Trump could be undercutting his own support there.
Right, exactly.
Has anyone here been to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan? Very lovely up there.
Yeah, I love it up there. But
all right, well, anyway.
Auto plants, but lovely leaves.
Yeah, Macomb County is a working class suburb, I should say.
And what about North Korea, though? Seth briefly mentioned that, but Kim Yong-chol, the spy master.
I think he's doing everything. I kept thinking Kim Jong-cho is casing the White House.
Yeah, he is.
Probably planting bugs here and there.
Right.
But, I'm all for what's happening, but I think the president, he's supposed to be this big deal maker, and he ripped up the Iran deal because it wasn't tough enough. I mean, he's giving away everything. I don't know necessarily what we're getting in this exchange.
I think North Korea, we're not going to get them to give up the bombs. They're not going to give up all the bombs. But I think both sides have a real interest in having a successful summit. I mean, Kim Jong-un wants all the goodies coming his way.
Quick.
And I will say this about, Trump, I'm afraid that the Japanese and others who want, just a really hard line and no concessions until you get everything, they're the ones who are going to walk away disappointed.
All right.
Both sides have to compromise.
When we come back, a sort of dead man walking and expensive tweets. Until then, make sure to follow us at McLaughlin Group on Twitter and visit our website, mclaughlin.com. We'll be right back after this message from the Taiwan civil government.
The following is a paid message brought to you by the TCG.
Today, I have the fortune of being joined by Neil Hare, the President and CEO of Global Vision Communications.
Thanks, Tom. We do represent the Taiwan civil government, which is an educational and advocacy group based in Taiwan that supports much closer relationship with the United States. They're a trusted partner on the ground for economic cooperation and trade, military cooperation, and also on the international stage. And so they've been working for over 10 years to foster this stronger relationship. They have over 60,000 members in Taiwan. And it's important to realize that Taiwan is not a recognized country. The United States doesn't recognize Taiwan. The G7 or the G20 don't recognize it. The United Nations doesn't recognize Taiwan. So that what they're trying to do is move towards some international recognition, but really to create a much stronger relationship with the United States that currently exists.
And Neil, on that point, American politicians might say that the risks of that recognition are too high in terms of China. What would your response be to that?
Well, I think, first of all, China, the issue of China and Trump's relationship with China is, I think, going to be the defining relationship of his presidency. Anything we do regarding Taiwan is going to have an impact on the Chinese relationship. And the closer we get to Taiwan, I think the angrier China may get.
Issue 3, sort of dead man walking.
Arkady, studio.
Observers gasped as Russian dissident journalist Arkady Babchenko walked into a press conference in Ukraine on Wednesday. After all, Ukraine declared on Tuesday that Babchenko had been killed by assassins as he entered his Kiev home. Why the deception? Because Ukraine's SBU intelligence service said that it needed to fake the assassination in order to catch Russian government-directed assassins who had been targeting Babchenko. Still, this wasn't the only tale of Russian-related intrigue in the news this week, because Kremlin critic Bill Browder was also briefly detained in Spain after Russia unilaterally entered his name on an Interpol detention notice.
Clarence, do these two incidents show that journalists are being used as political weapons more than they have been before?
They're being used differently. This is the weird thing about the world in the Putin era, how the totalitarian and authoritarian forces, governments, movements have become more active as far as their media manipulation. As a board member at the Committee to Protect Journalists, I'm happy Babchenko is safe, but we're disturbed by any kind of skullduggery, fakery being used to manufacture a false story.
Babchenko in Ukraine, they've got to be dumb as a box of rocks, these guys. Look, seriously, Putin and Trump are talking about fake news, so what do these guys do? They fake the news of his assassination, let's blame Putin, and then let's come out and all have a laugh at it.
It plays perfectly, doesn't it, Seth?
It does, but the problem is that it looks like arguably there was little alternative here. There was a hit put out for this guy. The Ukrainian authorities had a plan that apparently worked very well. They have 2 people in custody. They were able to even work some kind of a deal with the triggerman to come in and play the game. Even this person's wife had no clue what was going on. What's going on in Russia right now and throughout the world is absolutely unbelievable. They're really the state version of Murder Incorporated. We see the attempted murders in the UK. We see what happened to Bill Browder. If he was somehow brought back to Russia, I doubt he would have made it back home alive.
It looks like it was a legitimate sting, but it does add fodder to Putin's claims about fake news that's not real. Sure. And you have now talk about a summit being set up between Putin and the president. And we do have an active ambassador now in Moscow, John Huntsman. So maybe they can settle what happened
Tom,
with fake news.
We've got to make a point. Look, there are false flag operations around this world by governments and regimes to try to get other countries to fight each other. There's a long history of it with these Skripals and these 2 people who were poisoned in London. We don't have all the answers to that yet.
We have a lot of answers, though. They point in one direction.
That'll come out. The Russians did that. All right, issue 4, an expensive tweet.
ABC television star Roseanne Barr found herself out of the job this week after posting a tweet early Tuesday that was widely condemned as racist. Barr's tweet suggested that the former advisor to President Obama, Valerie Jarrett, is a child of the Muslim Brotherhood and the apes from the movie series Planet of the Apes. ABC responded quickly by cancelling Barr's show and decrying her language. Yet some conservatives, such as Turning Point USA Director Charlie Kirk, claim that the true reason Barr's detractors want her gone is because she supports President Trump.
And Seth, we have to note that Samantha Bee also made some very crude comments about Ivanka Trump, the president's daughter. But should ABC have cancelled Roseanne's show?
I think they really had little alternative. They really didn't have much of a choice. The contract is not a matter of public disclosure, but they probably had what's called a morals clause, which you probably breached with this racist rant. The thing that I find very interesting from a legal standpoint here is that this instance shows how hot the world of social media is today, running through the business and entertainment worlds, but yet how low the legal threshold of protection is for social media activity. Here you have one of the most powerful people in all of television today who just a couple of days ago was helping to run an empire, and in a day she completely blew up over one communication over social media.
30 seconds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it wasn't one community. She has a long history of that. In 2013, she said Susan Rice, the president's national security advisor, came from the planet of the apes. Similar, right?
It tells you something else, though, that Samantha Bee, that kind of language in the 50s, I mean, or 60s, 70s, gotten you thrown right off. The highest thing that you cannot touch is the race issue. It's the most toxic and the most explosive, and that's the one that Roseanne touched on, and that's why she's gone. And Samantha Bee.
Well, Samantha Bee was late night comedy and the different issue.
Right, and you can touch the race issue. It's just how you do it. You know, calling a presidential aide for Planet of the Apes, Muslim Brotherhood, etc. And she's still doing it. Roseanne has continued to tweet these paranoid clippings from internet memes and put them out without checking them out.
But, you know,
and this is something that's
far more
the behavior
vicious.
she's done before the show started.
Far more vicious was the comment she made about George Soros. Did you see that?
Yeah,
Soros,
same
you
deal.
know, was, aided the Nazis and killing Jews and things.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really awful. This is more juvenile.
That's something else.
That's
something else she clipped off the web and just put it out there. And ABC knew this before they started the show. They knew they were taking a big risk with her because she's got that kind of eccentric behavior.
But they also knew
she
that
needs help.
Wait, let me ask Eleanor. There is a double standard though, right? Conservatives are held to
there's a difference between a primetime network show and a late night comedy show that doesn't have very high ratings and a crude language, you know, versus a racist comment made in a different forum that undermines the show's host on network television. ABC did the right thing. They did the only thing they could do. The sponsors, were going to be gone in droves. And Samantha Bee is not out of the woods yet. Some sponsors have worries about her.
There would have been a stampede to the advertisers on ABC. They said, "Can we survive what's coming?" They said to themselves, "No, we can't. Cut it now."
Right.
What do you think about Bill Maher's argument?
I don't think, I'm not in favor of really throwing anybody off the air, to be quite frankly. I mean, everybody can make that call themselves, but
let the market decide.
There's too much piling on in this
One of the things that Roseanne was able to do, which really was a big deal in the media industry, was that she opened up a new door to an audience in Middle America. There's a lot of programming that is hot today where they're focusing on millionaires on the Upper East Side, or people lounging on the beach in Miami, or people drinking in Beverly Hills. She opened up a door and she spoke to a voice in Middle America that people were listening to.
Archie Bunker.
All in the Family 21st century version with humor that both sides could laugh at. That was the goal. Too bad they didn't fulfill it.
I remember very well how Cosby's show became #1 back in the 80s. And what was the next show to be #1? Roseanne. And he carried on for like 9 or 10 seasons. And you're absolutely right. I was happy to see that new Roseanne show come along. I thought it did a good job of showing what's happening in a lot of households right now that are divided over Trump. The bad news is what she did off the air.
Okay, exactly. All right, well, the real #1 show is going to be this show. But anyway, we'll be right back with predictions.
The McLaughlin Group is brought to you in part by Eric.org. With gridlock in Washington, states are stepping in to mandate paid sick and family leave policies, creating a compliance nightmare for companies with a nationwide workforce. The ERISA Industry Committee is fighting back. Learn how we can help your company at Eric.org.
The following is a paid message brought to you by the TCG.
Today, I have the fortune of being joined by Neil Hare, the President and CEO of Global Vision Communications.
Thanks, Tom. We do represent the Taiwan Civil Government, which is an educational and advocacy group based in Taiwan that supports a much closer relationship with the United States. They're a trusted partner on the ground for economic cooperation and trade, military cooperation, and also on the international stage. And so they've been working for over 10 years to foster this stronger relationship. They have over 60,000 members in Taiwan. And it's important to realize that Taiwan is not a recognized country. The United States doesn't recognize Taiwan. The G7 or the G20 don't recognize it. The United Nations doesn't recognize Taiwan.
What is the sale factor to Americans in terms of your argument for a closer Taiwan-US relationship?
Well, I think I want to put it in the global context and the foreign policy and diplomacy. And there's been a lot going on with trade recently and the tariffs that President Trump was talking about with China, and a lot of people, free traders didn't like that. But you have all these pieces on the board. You have the North Korea relation talk. You have trade with China. You have the steel and the aluminum imports, and you have to put it all in that context. And the closer we get to Taiwan, the harder things get with China.
Predictions, Pat.
The IG at the FBI, Michael Horowitz, is going to have his 15 minutes of fame this month when his report comes out on the Comey-McCabe investigation, and it's going to be another winner for Mr. Trump.
Okay, Eleanor.
Well, we'll see. Seth is right that if the president continues on this pardon path and a pattern emerges that he's pardoning people who might undermine his own case, that could just build an obstruction of justice charge against him. Very dangerous.
There will be a closed-door meeting this week between senior executives of ABC and executives from Carsey Werner, the company that is not only the production unit for the Roseanne show, but holds all the intellectual property. They will strike a deal. There will be a new program that will move forward that will strike in the middle of America to have great ratings as Roseanne Barr floats off into obscurity.
And Tom will be the host.
Clarence.
Negotiations are going on. Yep. But okay, the biggest impediment for Democrats and their hope for blue wave will be internal division between the progressive and moderate factions. The Democrats are back to their old wonderful ways.
Okay. I predict that in the next few weeks, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards will harass a US or British vessel in the Gulf. They are already doing a lot there, which is not making the news because of North Korea. And here's a random fact. 29 years ago today, China's communist government began its crackdown on the so-called Tiananmen Square protesters. The protesters sought freedom, but over the following days, 150 to 10,000 of their movement would be killed by the People's Army and the People's Police. Anyway, thank you very much, panelists, for this wonderful and enjoyable discussion about Roseanne and dead journalists who are not dead. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next week, but until then, make sure to visit our website, mclaughlin.com, where you can watch this and all other shows. And please tell your friends that we were back on the air. 再见.